Say, do you have a healthy workstation? What is a healthy workstation, by the way? We'll take a look at that today. Welcome to the Soft Skill channel. My name is Sebastian Jung, and today's topic is how to get and maintain a healthy workstation. Now, when talking about a healthy workplace, I always have an image in mind. Someone is sitting at his desk saying, oh, well, I really need to proactively boost my effectiveness, exploit synergies to improve my processes and generate more win-win situations. And this person is sitting on an ergonomic chair since years, and he has never adjusted it, same as his screen, his desk. He also hasn't drunk anything for hours, he didn't open the windows all days, and he never takes any breaks. Now, this might be a bit extreme, but I've frequently encountered situations that clearly take this direction. And I think there are some, wrong priorities here. A healthy workstation is something that tends to be a bit overlooked and neglected, but it is the basis of a successful working day. The first thing that comes to people's minds when talking about a healthy workstation is usually the chair, so let's start with that. Try to get a hold of a manual for your chair. Often there is a small flyer or leaflet that is attached to your chair with a small plastic thingy. So have a look around. If your chair doesn't have one anymore, maybe one of your colleagues has one and will give it to you. And if you don't find one at all, you will find the manufacturer's name somewhere on the chair, and on his homepage you usually the manual usually can be downloaded as a PDF file. So once you've obtained a manual for your chair, go through all the possible adjustments and adjust all of them so you are comfortable and you have a healthy sitting position. I will provide a link in the video description to an article where you have a nice picture that shows all the important aspects to take care of. If I describe them in the video and later you have to go back and forth while making the adjustments, this wouldn't be that uncomfortable. This wouldn't be very comfortable, so I better provide you with a decent picture. Properly adjusting the chair is only half the work, though. The other thing that is quite important is that you shift your sitting position frequently throughout the day, so there aren't single muscle groups that are overused during the day, so you don't put a strain on single muscles, single body parts. So shift your sitting position frequently and keep moving. Of course, it's very helpful for that if you have a desk where the height can easily be adjusted on the fly, so you can use it as a standing desk for a couple of hours every now and then. Adjusting the desk height is important anyways. If you're lucky, it can be adjusted. There is an electrical adjustment and you just have to press some button. If it is mechanical, maybe you have some small thingy to turn. Now, if you are less lucky, you might need a screwdriver, maybe ask facilities if they can adjust it for you. Now, if you are completely out of luck and your desk cannot be adjusted at all, you can try to adjust your chair to the height of your desk, and for the difference, get a small stand to put your feet on. Of course, if your desk is way too low for you, you have to talk to facilities and get a different one. Another important thing about your desk I should mention is that you maintain a little bit of order. So all the things you frequently need during the day are within your reach, and you know where they are, and everything is tidy to some extent. Next up is your mouse and your keyboard, and here of course it's important that you get ones that are comfortable to work with for you, and that you like. Get a mouse pad that is rather flat, so there isn't any sharp edge that's pressing into your wrist. And you might also want to get one that has a small pad for your wrist, if that is comfortable for you. And if you work all day with your mouse and it puts a lot of strain on your wrist, you might also want to take a look at special ergonomic mouses. Those allow you to maintain an upright position for your hand rather than having to turn it over permanently. Now, if you've worked several years with a classic mouse, this will take some time to get used to, but it can help to reduce the strain on your wrist. For your keyboard, it's also a good idea to get pads where you can place your hands on. And of course, there are ergonomic keyboards. You probably know the classic ones with a curved shape, where the keys for your left hand and your right hand are tilted to the sides, so you don't have to tilt your wrists while typing, but you can maintain a more natural position. And most recent ergonomic keyboards even have the right hand and left hand keys as entirely separate devices that you can place independent of each other, so you don't have this shoulders to the front rounded back effect, but you can just place them wherever is comfortable for you, and you can type comfortably. So especially if you do a lot of typing throughout the day, if you have to write articles or a lot of emails or whatever, it's a good idea to get an ergonomic keyboard. And if your employer doesn't provide those, it might even be a good idea to buy them yourself and bring them to the office, because this is an investment that will pay off in the long run. If you have to make a lot of calls throughout the day, you should also get a decent headset, so you don't have to do this classic thingy where you put the phone between your shoulder and your ear while you take your notes on the keyboard, but you can just comfortably make the calls. Your screen is also quite important. First thing to keep in mind is that your screen should be placed at about a 90-degree angle to the windows, so you don't have reflections on your screen, and you also don't have intense light in the background. And furthermore, the screen should be adjusted according to the position of your head. The upper edge of the screen should be at about the height of your eyes, and you should face the screen right on without having to tilt your neck. And the distance should be about the length of your arm. Furthermore, it's very important to adjust brightness and contrast. There shouldn't be a big contrast, a big difference in brightness between your screen and the surroundings, because that would put a lot of strain on your eyes. You might also want to adjust the color temperature and activate a blue light filter if your screen has one. Unless, of course, you work in graphics design and work on images a lot, where exact display of colors is very important, because a warm color temperature and less blue light puts less strain on your eyes. You might know that it's important in the evening because blue light tends to keep us awake, but even throughout the day it is more comfortable for your eyes. Also make sure you have set the correct resolution. Flat screen should always be set to its native resolution, as this will give you the best image quality. And if this causes your text to be very small, you should also adjust your operating system's font size to be bigger so you can read everything comfortably. I will put tutorials for that in the video description. Now, it might be a challenge if the device you work on is a small notebook computer. Now, obviously, such a device is not sufficient for longer working periods because the screen is too small, it's in the wrong position, the keyboard is not sufficient. So if you have to work with such a device for a longer time, always attach a proper screen, proper keyboard, proper mouse. Usually in your office you will have a docking station where you can just insert the notebook and screen, keyboard, everything is immediately attached. And this is also quite important if you are working from home, because you might be tempted to just sit on this tiny notebook for hours, and it's really doesn't really work well in the long run. So always make sure you have proper screen, keyboard and everything to attach to your notebook when you are working from home. Another challenge is when at your office you don't have a permanent workstation, but everyone just takes whichever is free at the moment, because you will have to adjust your chair, your screen and everything each day. If this is the case, I clearly recommend to still make the adjustments, because otherwise for weeks and months and years you will sit at an unhealthy workstation for 8 hours or more each day, and this probably might not work out nicely in the long run. So what I recommend is get some routine, learn how your chair, how your desk, your screen, everything works. So when you start work in the morning, just chair, all set, screen done, desk done, so you can quickly make all the adjustments and start your work. Another important factor for a healthy workstation is lighting. It's best to use daylight as much as possible, as this will help your body to maintain its natural rhythm, its natural wake-sleep cycle. But if daylight is not sufficient, you should also use artificial lighting to make sure that your workstation is always well lit. Mm. I've sometimes met people who prefer to have a darker room or a darker workstation and to put down, close the blinds and turn off the lights. I am not sure whether this can cause any health issues, but if you are going against the recommendations, I would recommend not to overdo it, not to turn the light down too much, and always keep in mind that you still adjust your screen properly, so you don't end up sitting in a dark room staring into the bright light of the screen, because this would put a lot of strain on your eyes. Now, since people might have different preferences, might like more or less light at their workplace, it's always a good thing if each workstation has a small lamp that you can turn on and off according to your preferences and according to the work you do at the moment. Another important factor for a healthy workplace is air quality. Now, some of you probably have air conditioning with a ventilation system that permanently provides some fresh air. And if you do, I really envy you, because it's quite hot in this room at the moment. But if you don't have any air conditioning, any ventilation system, the important thing to know is when you've reached the point where you say, it's quite sticky and smelly in here, I better open the window, then you've been sitting in bad quality air that has a negative effect on your ability to concentrate and on your performance for several hours. Probably all of you know this effect where you're sitting in a room and everything seems perfectly fine, and then you go outside for a few minutes, and when you come back you say, oh, it really stinks in here, the air is really bad in here, and you didn't notice before at all. So when it comes to opening the window, don't rely on the perceived need, because this is quite unreliable. But establish a fixed routine where you open the windows at fixed times, and this will ensure permanent high quality air throughout the day. Of course, humidity and temperature are important factors as well, but as a single employee you can't do much to change those, so the employer will have to take care of that. As I said, lucky you if you have air conditioning. Noise can be a problem at your workplace. If there is a lot of background noise, for one, this can be quite distracting, and noise can also be a source of stress, so try to reduce background noise as much as possible. Of course, you're out of luck if you work in a big open space office, because those are just super effective against any kind of effectiveness. If the background noise really is a big nuisance and a big problem for you, I recommend that you get some earplugs to shut it out to some extent, if there is no other solution. Drinking is also quite an important topic. A few years back, recommendations were quite high. It was recommended to drink several liters a day, and I know a lot of people who had problems because they tended to drink less and they had to force themselves to drink more and to drink more frequently. But in recent years, There has been some progress in the research, and it has turned out that our food contains more liquid than was known before, and that drinking too much can also be a problem. So the current state is that it's recommended to drink whenever you have the urge, but not to force yourself to drink certain amounts. So what I recommend is always have a glass of water ready at your desk, within your reach. So when you say, oh, well, I could drink some water now, you can just reach over, have that drink, because what will happen otherwise is that you are currently in your work and you don't want to interrupt it, or there are some distractions, or you are under stress and under pressure, and then you forget about it. And yeah, then this can take an unhealthy direction. So just have this glass of water at the ready and you're fine. Now, one thing that is neglected quite a lot is taking regular breaks. I've met very few people who have a good routine for taking breaks, and I'm always struggling with it myself. Now, one problem is we always have this impression, this idea, if you take breaks, you might appear lazy, and we tend to think if we take breaks, it will decrease our performance throughout the day because it takes away time from work. But actually, the opposite is true. Taking regular breaks will improve our performance, and our output throughout the day is higher if we take regular breaks than when we just try to go on and work through the day without any breaks. If you have a common office computer job, then there are three main factors you should take care of. The first is your mind. Allow your mind a break every now and then. Get some distance from work. Allow yourself to calm down. Stress is an important factor here. And allow yourself to relax every now and then. It's important here that you get some distance from your work during these breaks. For example, what I really don't recommend is that in your lunch break you just eat something at your desk, maybe while continuing your work. I recommend that you step outside and get away from your desk for a couple of minutes. So you put some distance between yourself and your desk, and you can really get a change of scenery and can think about something else for a moment. What I also don't recommend is that, for example, when you have lunch with your colleagues, that you talk about work topics during your break. I rather recommend that you think about something else for a moment so you can really calm down and relax. Another important thing is your body, because long periods of sitting put a lot of strain on your body, and it's important to get up every now and then, to move around a bit, maybe stretch a bit. There are some small exercises you can perform at your desk, even when wearing business clothing. I will put a link that describes some in the video description. And also it's quite helpful if in your spare time you do some exercise, some sports to compensate for those long periods of sitting. It's especially helpful, of course, if you perform some exercises that target your back muscles, because if you train your body, especially your back, it will be able to better cope with those long periods of sitting. And the third important factor are your eyes, because looking at the screen for hours on end puts a lot of strain on your eyes. So it's important to look at something else every now and then, to allow your eyes to focus on a different distance and to allow your eyes to relax every now and then. There are also special classes you can get for working at a screen. I think it's especially relevant for older people, where age starts to cause some farsightedness. So if you are working at a screen all day, you might want to look into that. It's a special challenge if you are working from home, because obviously your employer won't provide a workstation there that already has an ergonomic chair and a desk where the height can be adjusted and a proper screen and everything, and you have to take care of all of this yourself. I really recommend that you take this serious, that you don't just work on a notebook all day when you're working from home, but that you really make sure to have a decent chair, have a decent desk, that you have a big screen that you can attach to your notebook, and that you, even at home, have a workstation where you can work comfortably for 8 or more hours. Please let me know in the comments what are the biggest challenges for you in having a healthy workstation, and what things are most important to you. Now, this has turned out to be a rather long video. There were quite a lot of points I wanted to discuss. Thanks a lot for sticking with me to the end. Have a nice day. See you next time.